in our last clip, we reviewed linear color space and why it's essential for correct multipass compositing. Now, that may not be enough. There are other things that you can set wrong within your renderer which will create compositing issues. And here I have the demo clip, which I spent a little bit longer rendering, but I got something wrong. And when I look at my composite, I can see that my reflections look completely wrong. Now, this came about in my GI pass. One of the interesting things about multipass back to beauty compositing is that you can use it to diagnose your render. You can see where things have gone wrong. If you look at the GI pass, you can see that I'm seeing stuff in the reflections and nothing in my diffuse areas. That's the exact opposite of what I should be seeing. If I have a look over at my linear render, although it's a much lower quality render, you can see that there is GI on the flat diffuse areas and none within the reflective areas. So there's something set wrong here. This can be within the light cache or all kinds of other settings within V-Ray. But because we know that our compositing is correct, we know that this is a problem with the way we've rendered the scene. And this is why it's vital to understand this. This is why I'm spending so much time in Nuke on this module. Because what I want you to understand is, I don't want you to be re-rendering things which are correct. And I don't want you to be correcting things in the renderer which are simply composited wrong. I want you to understand when your render is correct but your composite is wrong, and when your composite is wrong and your render is correct. That's important whether you're working alone or whether you're working in a team. If you're working alone, that could save you hours of time because you won't need to re-render. You can simply change your composite. If you're working in a team, it's very important to know, do you need to do the extra work or do they need to do the extra work? So in this case, everything is correct except for our GI problem. So we've got something funky going on with the GI, which is causing our reflections to look wrong. Our lighting element looks as it should, and all the other elements look as we imagine that they should. So, although our caustics is very, very blotchy. So we can use our, as I've said, we can use our multipass compositing as a way of diagnosing our renders, and this is another important benefit. Before I close this clip, I would like to show you one more very useful pass which is actually new to the latest version of V-Ray, and that's the Denoise pass. So I'm going to create a shuffle node, our effects result, and if I look at the effects result, what I see is all of the noise has gone away. Now that's great if we're not using multipass rendering. Now obviously with such low render quality, even denoising is not enough. However, if I look at this, although this render is wrong in many ways, I can actually look at my effects result and do the shuffle, and again change that to our effects result, and we can view that, and you can see that it's really cleaned up our image. So this is not the same as upping the render quality. It's not really increasing the render time by very much. It's much more like denoising in a post process, applying a denoise within Nuke or a denoise within Photoshop, and yet it's slightly better because it's done within some consideration for the renderer itself. Now that's fine, but what if I change this render in some way? How can I use the denoise pass? Well, in fact, let's use our shuffle copy, our shuffle pass, and our effects result. In fact, let's use our denoiser element itself. So the denoiser element is the key here. So if I take my denoiser element and I create a merge by pressing the M key, or of course typing tab merge, and I'm going to connect the B pipe to my render, and I'm going to connect the A pipe to here. I don't want it to be over, I don't want to put one on top of the other. What I want to do is apply a from. That's going to subtract the denoiser from the original render, and what I get is just the noise on its own. Now if I'm going to press full stop to create a dot node, and I'm going to go all the way to the bottom of my composite, and I'm going to create another merge, and I'm going to change that to from. And I'm going to put that at the bottom of my tree. So here I have my noisy multipass render, and here I have my denoise render. So what I've done is I've got this noise and I've subtracted the noise from the render. So I get my denoise render, and that's fine as long as I am only making subtle changes within my multipass composite. However, if I get radical, for example, if I bring my reflections down massively, you can see that we get all kinds of problems. So there is a very big limitation in this system, that you have to retain your render close to the original result. So if you're making subtle tweaks and changes and amends, that's fine. But if you're doing anything radical, I mean, if I were to bring my lighting pass right down, then you can see that all the noise comes back. So this is a very useful pass, but in many cases you may need to up your renderer settings all the same. So this module has shown us some of the power of multipass rendering. We've learned the correct maths to ensure that our workflow is sound. We have seen how to use the beauty passes and the denoiser pass. We're now able to diagnose render issues using our passes to isolate where the issue may be occurring.